if they just don't feel alone, I don't have the answer, but I'm going to sit right here with you. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
sit right here next to you, and I'm not going to go anywhere. You don't have to be by yourself. That is often more than enough.
All right. So today I have with us Prentis Hemphill or Hemphill. How do you
You
pronounce
know
it
what? Thank
properly?
you for asking me that. It's Hemphill. No one ever asked, but it's Hemphill.
Okay, Hemphill. All right.
Yeah.
So Prentis Hemphill with us. They are an embodiment practitioner, therapist, and activist, and also the author of What It Takes to Heal: How Transforming Ourselves Can Change the World. How are you? Thank you for being here.
I'm doing pretty well today. I'm feeling pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, today has been a slow day for me, so I'm good. I had to think
Okay.
about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I have been doing on the podcast is I've been trying to have people to remind people to really answer that question, to check in with themselves, because most of the time we reflexively, if somebody asks us how we're doing, we're just like, oh, I'm fine, even though our
Sure.
world might be falling apart or we're just less than fine. So
Yeah.
one thing that me and my best friend have been doing lately, because we are very much in the habit of I'm good even though we're not good, is we'll
Mm-hmm.
ask each other, how are we? PMS. So P is physically, M is mentally, and then S is spiritually. So now I'm going to
I
ask
love
you,
that.
how are you PMS?
Physically, mentally, spiritually. Physically, I have a little bit of a cold. I have a toddler who gives me every germ. They
Oof.
all pass through my house.
Yep.
So I'm recovering from a little bit of a cold. Mentally, I'm doing well. I'm actually on a work retreat with some dear friends, and we've been having some riveting conversations. So mentally, I feel very stimulated. And I think with them, there's not much a difference between the mental and the spiritual. I feel fed um, both equally by them and what we're up to. So spiritually, I'm feeling very full.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing. And I am in the trenches with you. Toddlerhood is rough because, yes, once they leave the house and they are in
Yo,
daycare or they have social lives, my goodness. Like,
how old are yours?
oh, my oldest is 9, but my little one is 5. It's his first year in pre-K.
Oh yeah,
From December until March, let me
yeah,
tell you, everybody was sick on
yeah.
repeat. I'm like, I can't live like
It's too
this.
much. It's too much.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm happy that you're on the rebound and that you
Thank
are
you.
feeling a little bit better.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we hop into what it takes to heal, I am curious as to what does it mean to be an embodiment practitioner?
Hmm. That's some of the conversation we've been in today. I've been studying somatic slash embodiment for about 15 years, and really it's a study of how a body changes or how a body heals, which is also the story in a way of how a body holds trauma or pain or
Mm,
memory. So I work with people, I work with groups, I work with myself um, to move those stories, move that pain through the body, not just kind of processing what we've been through mentally, but actually moving things through our whole somas, as we call them, our entire bodies. So that's what I do. I do um, kind of coaching work where we focus on the body, we listen to the body. I do practice with people where we do movement work together. And I also do body work where sometimes I work with people kind of lying on the table and do body work with them to support them.
Um, did this, did you become an embodiment practitioner before or after being a therapist, or was it like simultaneous?
That's a great question. It was pretty simultaneous, actually. I think that my interest in understanding trauma and healing kind of happened at the same time. I may have actually been introduced to somatics and embodiment just like a year before I started studying to become a therapist, but I'd been in therapy for a long time. So it was kind of a path that, went like that. But it was about the same time.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So I was looking at your website and the for to order in order to pre-order the book, and which I also have down in the link below. So it's an easy
Thank
way
you.
for you guys to go ahead and click. Please purchase the book, read the book.
That's
ask
good.
for it at your library, all of those good things.
I love that.
Um, but it says the book is a tool to help those searching for a healing home, a place where communal infrastructure can be rebuilt or fortified to sustain us on our journey towards self acceptance, accountability, joy, and freedom in all the ways we've yet to experience it.
Yeah.
Whew. All the things that we are collectively in need of. What
Yeah.
led you to writing this book?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had spent a long time, really, I started my career, my adult working life in social movements. So, doing organizing work, activist work, and looking at the kind of structural and societal historical forces that, uh, kept people from having long lives, kept people from having the things that they needed. And then I got really interested in trauma because I could see how, even as we were organizing together, the things that we had experienced in our lives actually kept us from really having the deep connection or being accountable with each other. It just kept us from these relational skills. But I saw it as our personal histories are also kind of here with us, and they're
Mm,
keeping us from doing the things that we really intend to do. So, I started asking these questions about how does the kind of social context relate to our individual histories of trauma. And it led me to do a lot of work, particularly inside of Black movement spaces, on kind of trauma healing and social context, and a lot of practice, a lot of study, a lot of failures, attempts to try things in community that didn't work. But I spent a long time in learning, and so this book was me kind of taking what I'd learned from the years of practice, both as a therapist slash clinician, as an organizer, as somebody that was trying to bring healing into social change movements. These were like the things that I felt like we needed to be embodying, the things that we needed to be kind of working on and practicing. I wanted to offer them in a book, but I also wanted to offer them in a way, not as, a lot of these books are like an expert says. And, to me, a teacher or even an expert is someone that's a little further down the path, that has been asking these
mm,
questions for a long time. So I wanted to reveal my own stories in the book, but also um, share what I've learned, but not from a place of I'm special or somehow different. But I'm just like everybody else, trying to find my way through my own stories and freedom.
understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was reading online. I saw that you did a lot of work with the Black Lives Matter movement,
Hmm.
and you just mentioned how you want to bring healing um, to like activism and things like that. How do those go together?
Yeah. The question is, in a way, how do they not go together? Is how I think about it. Because when you think about it, I'll break it down like this. When I think about what oppression actually is, it is denial of resources. It is structural barriers. It's all those things that how we talk about oppression. But oppression is also the pain that we experience in our bodies. It's the traumas that our grandmothers had. It's the chronic disappointment. It's the grief that we feel because we've lost people too soon. It's also those experiences that aren't just intellectual things, but we see it living in the bodies and in the tissues of people we love and of ourselves. And so for me, the question of healing is always a question of who's experiencing more pain than actually is their share, and
Mm,
how do we, I used to say when I started doing this work, I want all people, but I want my people in particular to be able to feel their lives, to be able to live long lives, and to be able to feel the lives that they have without needing to, because of oppression, numb out or escape, but to actually feel the beauty and also the pain of our lives, to feel the full expression. I think a lot of what we carry is not just our own individual pain, though it's individually felt, but it has to do with systems, and it has to do with history, and it has to do with the collective and what the collective is going through too.
yeah. Ooh. What you just said was so loaded. One of the
Hmm.
things that I think about is one is a question, then I'll come back to my thought. But the question is when we like the traumas of our own experience, the traumas of our collective, the traumas of the people who came before us, how does that manifest within our bodies?
I want to hear your comment too, but will you remember to say it?
I'll try my best to. My memory is shaky these days.
I don't want to
But
lose it. Um, so we inherit trauma in a couple ways. So there's a lot of research lately about epigenetic and how our genes kind of get coded with the experiences of our ancestors and how they can get switched on and off. So basically, I think about it this way: our bodies, in a way, are kind of the ancestral. It's our bodies are comprised of the best learnings of our ancestors.
hmm,
So our ancestors, their learnings across time, not just our most recent ancestors, but across time, even the way we are structured, um, the way that the way that we look, all of it has to do with what our ancestors learned and adapted to in their context. But they also, there are these ways epigenetically where our really recent ancestors can pass down information about the context that they grew up in and pass it into our very genes.
hmm,
So that's one way we can learn from both the resilience and the trauma of our ancestors. Another way is really relationally. If you think about, for whoever's listening, the house that you grew up in, you may not have thought about it this way, but the ways that your parents were, or your caregivers were, the things they were afraid of, the emotions they wouldn't allow themselves to feel, whether or not they discipline you through fear or through care, all of these things are related to a context that they grew up in and perhaps what they were not able to process or heal from themselves. So they pass it down in a way by shaping your entire worldview, shaping your behavior, shaping the way you move, shaping the way you feel in your own body, shaping your relationships in a way into the future, because there are things that you might not, I've worked with people that are like, it wasn't okay for me to feel anger in my family. Only my parents or only my dad could feel anger. So whenever I get close to that feeling, I shut it down in all these ways. And sometimes you grow up and you need to be angry. There are times
yeah.
when you need to be angry, but if you have been disallowed anger in your own body, it's going to take quite a process for you to recover the ability to feel that kind of anger that protects you,
Mm.
that doesn't make you kind of acquiesce to everybody else's needs. So that's one of the ways we get shaped also by our ancestors, through relationship and through the way history really is alive all the time.
Ooh. Oh, this is. I feel like the conversations I've been having this week have been really making me think a lot about how I show up as a parent.
Mm,
Um, Man,
yeah,
the pressure. Like
yeah,
I'm constantly checking myself and trying to figure out, how to unlearn some things about parenthood, right? And how I relate to my kids. And it's like, wow, the work is just never ending because of the you mentioned the fear. I feel like in
yeah,
some ways I do parent in fear. I don't want to, have
yeah,
them absorb that.
yeah.
But
Oh,
that's
yeah.
an aside.
I mean, it's a major thing,
Ugh,
and it's a major thing for many people. I think it's a major thing for us. I feel it in my own parenting at times, and I definitely grew up with that same
mhm,
thing. It's
mhm.
big.
Yeah, yeah. The thought that I had earlier was about when I think about activism. I think when most of us think about activism, we think about like, oh, we're out in the streets and, we're angry, like that righteous
Mm-hmm.
indignation and our nervous systems are activated, right? Um, or what I also think about is frustration, like what
Mm-hmm.
leads to that, right? So the knowledge of all of the systems that are built against us, what I've been trying to navigate lately is just feeling all the things. Most of the things are negative things,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
So as you start to learn about the systems and how things are and all of the injustices around, you might feel helpless,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And also you might feel like, well, maybe I'm not normal. because it seems like the rest of the world is just carrying on.
Right.
And I'm feeling these really big feelings that kind of are paralyzing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that? I think I may have rambled a little bit, but
No,
what
you
are your
didn't at all.
thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Um, I think that's absolutely the case. When a lot of people start to become aware of just how the world works and even how we're all kind of implicated in how the world works,
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be really overwhelming to an
Mm-hmm.
individual person. I think that I think that the really powerful thing. Think about it like this: when you were growing up, I'll say from my vantage point, when I was growing up, um, we didn't have a lot, but I know my grandmother lived 2 blocks away, and I'd go over there almost every day. I ride my bike over there, and there was always a meal to eat. All my cousins would be over there. A lot of people would come in from the neighborhood. It was just always something. There was an abundance
Mm-hmm.
of connection. There was an abundance of food. She was feeding people throughout the neighborhood. Um, so I think, and it wasn't like the systems weren't kind of bearing down on her and
Mm-hmm.
on my family, but there was a kind of what we focused on. What was really important to us was our connection and togetherness.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I want to say to all of us when we feel really overwhelmed by what's happening, it is actually overwhelming. There's not actually a way for me to say, oh, yeah, there's not much going on. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is a huge transition period.
Mm-hmm.
um, no matter how you look at it, you can look at it through the climate lens, you can look at it through a geopolitical
Yeah.
lens. We are at a transition point. Um, the thing that makes it possible to process big events,
Mm-hmm.
big crises, to get through them is each other. I often say that, we are, we sometimes feel like something is too big for me to feel alone. And that's because it actually is. We need to feel it in
Mm-hmm.
community. We need to feel it together. We need to weep and wail and cry together. We need to strategize and build and take risks together. I think the reason why so much feels overwhelming is because we are increasingly isolated from each other,
Yep.
and trauma creates isolation,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the politics of our world create isolation. So
Hmm.
I think that's one of the things that we're kind of
Yeah.
struggling against, is that we don't rely on each other that way.
Yeah. And you mentioned how you were as a like your childhood, being able to gather at your grandmother's house who was right down the road with your cousins and things like that. My childhood was similar. Like
Mm,
we literally at one point we lived in a 3 apartment home where upstairs was one auntie and her family, downstairs was another one, right?
yeah,
So we were always together, and then down the street and around the corner were some more cousins.
right.
But now it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I live states away
Yeah,
from family, and my kids don't have that situation. I think it's become increasingly common that
yeah,
families aren't on the same block or in the same town even anymore.
yeah,
So, because of that isolation, a lot of people are retreating online, right? And maybe
yeah.
finding community online. What are your thoughts on that? Do you find that online communities can replace like the physical communities?
This is an interesting question, and one that I feel like I've been in my own life, because similarly, I don't live near my biological family
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Um, but I've been in a kind of experiment with some close friends of like, when you like date someone, you fall in love, or you
Mm-hmm.
partner with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and that feeling of family is available to you. You can do
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
But a lot of time we feel like, oh, I only have one family. I can't feel that way about other people. But there's something that happens in the romantic sphere where you can create family with a person that's totally biologically unrelated to you.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been really interested in thinking about, what is that mechanism? What is the internal allowance to say this person is related to me? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we have it with like our best friends. We're like, this is my sister, this is whatever,
Mm-hmm.
this is my brother, this is someone really close to me. Um, but I actually think we're going to have to, in this next period, in a way, create families
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
decide to not only hang out with each other, because that's, as also a parent, it's like you realize when you have a kid who really is down for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because some
Mm-hmm.
people are like, oh, you can't kick it like you used to, I'm not around.
Truly.
um, but who really will show up for you? Who will get to know your kid? Who will come bring you a meal when you're hungry? I think we have to be uh, start to become each other's business in that way, in a serious
Mm-hmm.
way, and have those conversations with each other to break up the isolation. Because you're right, not only are we more isolated from our families, but I feel like the way that we're processing news and media, it's isolating us more and more. We think we're connecting online, but have you really connected with the thousand
Right.
TikToks or Instagram posts that you saw today, or was it just a fleeting,
Right.
you know,
Right.
touch
Right.
point? So I think we have to get in each other's business a little bit more.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about how we have been socialized to really prioritize our like romantic
Yeah.
relationships, and like as children, like you look forward to, I never did, but like the idea was to like, one
Yeah.
day get married and have your own family. And I think I know it's on purpose. It's designed that
Yeah.
way because if you just make a bunch of separate nuclear families, like the sense of community is lost,
Yep. Yep.
and that
Yep.
brings us back to what you just said, that it's super important for us to like really get in each other's business, like for real,
Yeah.
and create those communities, um yeah,
It's
of
hard work.
like-minded folks.
It's hard work. It's awkward. It's like, I always say, like, the real change is we're gonna have to be awkward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna have to feel a little awkward. We're gonna have to say, hey, I really care about you. Can we try to like have a deeper relationship? Can we really have each other's backs?
Mm,
Can I have your contacts, your close contacts? Can we exchange keys to the house? Will you show up when I need you? And it might feel awkward. It might feel like taking a risk, but um, you know, some real change happens on the other side of risk, on the other side of feeling awkward,
yeah.
and we have to be willing to do that.
Yeah. Ooh. So talk to me a little bit more about a couple of things. I'm interested in your work, how you deal with folks who are dealing with heavy things, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you care for yourself to stay balanced, or just to navigate through their stuff and your own stuff too, and the world stuff? So all the stuff, all the
All the
things.
stuff. I think for any support people, you have to realize what you're doing and what you're not doing. Um, a lot of times, what my work really amounts to is making the kind of space for someone that communicates to them that they can feel what they need to feel and I won't go away. Um,
Mm,
and when you give somebody that kind of space, what they do is what they do. Their body already is wise and will process through things, will express things that surprise them. But a lot of times we just need the safety in order to do that. And when I know that I am making space, it's easier for me to get out of the way and to let it run through me, not hold on to whatever might be coming out of them. I don't have to hold on to it like like I can fix it all, not hold on to it like it's my responsibility, not hold on to it pretending as though if I try to feel it for them, then it'll lessen their load.
mm,
Um, that's not my job. My job as an embodiment practitioner, as a body worker, is to invite them into their expression because the body already wants to move through the overwhelming experiences. The body already knows how to express and move through. So I just have to basically communicate. There's room. Nothing that you want to or need to express is weird to me, and I won't move away from you. I
mm,
won't leave you. Um, but all the other efforting that people do, I think sometimes gets in the way and tires them out. I would say though, sometimes I have to just stay connected to nature, what's bigger than me, spirit, prayer, dance. Dance is a big way for me to process through things that get stuck in my body and my system. I have my own set of embodiment practices that I do every day that kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of flush me out, flush my own
mhm,
system out.
mm. As you were saying that, I think about how um, that's so powerful of a statement. Just move through what you need to move through, and I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like so many of us may not have ever even heard that
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
from somebody. And I think
Yeah.
about in my own like close relationships, what I've been realizing about myself lately is that if somebody's going through something, I'm thinking, okay, how can I fix this? I'm like
Yeah.
panicking in my mind,
Yeah.
and it might actually come through too in the conversation. I'm thinking, okay, like, okay, what can we do? What can I do? Give me something to fix it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not what they called for or
Yeah,
came
that's
for,
right. That's
you
right.
know?
Fixing isn't feeling.
Right,
You know,
right,
sometimes we go into
right.
fix it mode because we don't want to feel it. It feels overwhelming to us to feel it. And like you said, when we're trying to figure out what to do, a lot of times somebody just needs to not feel alone. Like I talked
Yeah.
about connection. If they just don't feel alone, I don't have the answer, but I'm gonna sit right here with you. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
sit right here next to you, and I'm not gonna go anywhere. You don't have to be by yourself. That is often more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's more than enough. Yes, sometimes people are like, help me fix it. Sometimes things need to be fixed. But a lot of times we just don't want to feel alone. So I
Mm-hmm.
totally relate to that. And
Yeah. Ooh.
yeah,
Yeah. And you're right. Like fixing it, did you say thinking it doesn't fix it or
fixing it isn't feeling.
yes, and
Hmm.
that's something that I'm working on. I
Yeah.
do not like to feel.
Hmm.
Feeling makes me feel uncomfortable. So like, let's get into action. Whenever I'm
Yeah.
stressed, I'm moving. I do not sit still, and I'm working on. All right, girl, sit down somewhere and just feel it. Be uncomfortable with it, but feel it.
Oh yeah. That's what I do all day. So we maybe shouldn't hang out till you're ready because all I do is feel and encourage people to feel.
Okay, and I'd be running circles around you, like, oh no, we're not gonna feel these feelings.
And I'll just be sitting waiting on you, waiting for you to get tired.
So I know healing is so multifaceted.
Hmm.
So, what are maybe like a few things that you can take from your work, from what you've put into the book? What does it take to heal? I think you
Hmm.
mentioned one, which is community. Um,
Absolutely. We need relationships. Not only do we need relationships, we need to know that we're already in relationships. Um, what got you here today, how you got food in your stomach, the building you live in, you're already created by community. And most of the time, our society convinces us that we're still somehow individuals, but none of us got to this day alone.
True.
None of us got to this moment alone. So relationship is actually the reality.
Yeah.
So it's kind of coming into the reality. Um, the other thing about what it takes to heal, I say in the book that it starts one with vision and longing. So I will say that a lot of us, we have other people's visions kind of imposed on us, who we're supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be, what we should be doing,
Mm-hmm.
what will make us a good woman or a good
Yep.
man, or
Yep.
all these things about other people's visions for our lives. And we wonder, and then we try to like accumulate to become that. And we live oftentimes with a sense of dissatisfaction, kind of perpetual dissatisfaction. And I think ultimately a lot of us aren't in touch with our actual longing, what it is that we
Mm-hmm.
care about, what it is
Yep.
that we want for our lives in the world, what it is that makes us satisfied. And becoming, as my good friend Adrienne Marie Brown talks about in her work, becoming satisfiable in that way. And I think that comes from being in touch with your longings. The other thing about what it takes to heal is to feel. Um, Nothing's going to change until we allow ourselves to feel it. A lot of us spend our times running from what we already know needs to be felt, or we can sense
Mm-hmm.
in our bodies needs to be felt, but we run away from it in overachievement, we run away from it in substance, we run away from it in any number of distractions. I mean, you can use anything in the world to distract yourself from feeling. But I think feeling and having the kind of safety where you can feel what it is that you need to feel is the path towards transformation. That your body already wants to express and release. But
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, we end up building these blocks to that expression. Um, and then I would say, I'm kind of talking to the chapters of the book. I would think, another piece along with relationship is I talk about at the end of the book, love. As a organizer for a long time, I didn't talk about love because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was a serious thing. But I think the practice of love is the great transformative agent
Yeah.
in our universe to me. The only time I've ever really changed is because I was loved and
Mm.
allowed myself to be loved. And that's when I actually could let something go. So I think offering love, clarifying our own practice of love, you know, loving wide, loving deep, loving spaciously. Um, I think that kind of love gives each of us the kind of space and light to transform in.
Oh, that is beautiful. I'm so mad. Why is he riding the lawnmower like on the street? What are you doing? Um, that love piece is huge. I realize I have not gotten through All About Love by Bell Hooks because it is like every line was like a gut punch because I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, I don't know how to love, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And have I been loved? I mean,
Right.
you can only
Right.
give what you know how to give,
Yeah. Come
right?
on.
So yeah, that love piece is
It's
a
major.
lot. Yeah, it's
It's
major,
major.
and like you said, it's transformative. Like you you change through love,
That's
and
right.
yeah, that takes vulnerability. It takes a lot of the things, and yeah, that in of itself.
That's the good
Whew,
stuff though. That's the good stuff. That's when you operating on another
for sure.
level is when you're able to touch into that stuff. But I also understand there's a lot of fear for a lot of us around it because it's like, what if I let myself open up to this and it goes away? Or is
Mm,
or they actually see me and I'm not good enough. There's a lot of stories we can tell ourselves that block us from feeling what love can actually do. We try to convince ourselves that it doesn't really matter.
yeah,
But I find when I have stood in that light of love, I, I'm like, well, this is what the whole thing is about. This is the most
truly.
powerful force that I have
Yep.
ever experienced. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just want more and more of us. That is, when we talk about generational trauma,
Mm-hmm.
that's where it comes undone. We can do a
Mm,
lot of work. We can do a lot of like go to therapy. It will help. But what it's going to come down to is will I allow myself now to be loved and will I love?
mm, my goodness. Whew. Um, wow. I have been having some conversations with my husband over like the past couple years because I was raised in a really religious household. But as I stepped out into the world on my own, I started to examine my beliefs.
Mm,
And I'm like, the picture that was painted for me of who God is, I'm just like, that person,
yeah,
I don't like that person. That
yeah,
person is not kind. That person is looking
yeah,
for a reason to judge and to punish.
yeah.
And my husband, who is somebody who was not raised in the church,
Mm.
um, really made things so simple. Like, your Bible says that God is love. What is love? Like, for
Mm-hmm.
real, like, what do you know about love? Like,
Mm.
if it falls out of all of those, if it falls out of the category of what love is, that's not God.
Right, right.
Seek that,
Hey,
you
hey,
know?
that's right.
And yeah, so
I
coming
love
back to
that.
what you just said, allowing yourself to be loved and then also to love,
Yeah.
that's powerful. That is so
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Well, it sounds like y'all are in the practice of it. Y'all are in the reflection of it, because yeah, that to me is it. I'm like, God is love. I'm not
Hmm.
trying to dictate anybody else's beliefs, but
Hmm.
that's enough to meditate on.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
And how can I be that for somebody, and
Exactly.
show that, and especially with the kids, I have a little bit of guilt because I literally would spend 3 days a week in church as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And even though there's a lot of things I've had to unlearn in my adulthood, there were some things that I learned in church too. So
Absolutely.
I've had like some guilt about how my kids aren't being raised in that
Yeah.
sense. But I'm
Yeah.
just like, no, I want them
Same.
to really love.
Same.
Um, yeah. It's hard out here.
It really is. We do the best we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prentice. Again, I'm
Yes.
going to have the book down below in the show notes. Please go purchase. Call your libraries for them to purchase it so that way
Correct.
you can get it there as well. Again, it's called What It Takes to Heal: How Transforming Ourselves Can Change the World. Where can the people find you besides on your website, which I'll link down below? Is there anywhere else on
Sure.
social?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram, so at Prentis Hemphill is a good place to find me. You can also check out my organization, the embodimentinstitute.org. We host a lot of community practice spaces where we come together, try to build community, try to be honest, real people with each other, and change and grow together. So that's a place if you want to learn more about how to practice.
Beautiful. Thank you. I am so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
So good
it.
to meet you. Thank you for your questions.
Of course.
All right.